So would it be true then that the right hemisphere is trying to build up patterns of relationship with perhaps more subtle patterns and perhaps more people? The left hemisphere is trying to get it through products and excitement and perhaps buying things and acquiring things. It's acquisitional, you know.
Well, yes, there's an awful lot in that, in what you've just said. Starting with the end of it first, it is true that the left hemisphere is more singly driven by acquisition and manipulation than anything else, whereas the right hemisphere is indeed the home of all that makes us capable of relating to other people and to the world, and probably, in fact, to the divine. Though that's a complex issue about which I've written. But I think that what happens is that when you adopt this left hemisphere mentality, things are devitalized. And you see this in the schizo-autistic spectrum, that people describe other people as seeming to be like machines or like zombies, and themselves as being like a computer that's just accessing its data banks rather than actually living a life. So this devitalization, which has been brilliantly written about by Louis Sass in his book Madness and Modernism, he sees in modern culture, and I see in modern culture, he pointed out that it's a bit like schizophrenia. I pointed out that it's a bit like right hemisphere damage. In fact, if you wanted to create somebody who behaved like somebody with schizophrenia, you'd take an ordinary person and put lots of holes in their right hemisphere.
And then they would, the life would go out of things, and things would seem mechanical.
Things would seem mechanical. People describe, there's an instance described by Ronnie Lang of a patient who was on the schizophrenia spectrum, who thought that his wife was a machine, and that when he told her a joke, she laughed because she was programmed to find it funny. And this is, in fact, a not too distinct parody of the way in which neuroscientists think in this entirely left hemisphere way. I'm not saying that when they go home and sleep with their wives, they feel like that. But what I mean is that the way in which they talk about human beings inevitably is piggybacking on this belief that really we're a kind of mechanism with no interior.
All human reactions are just buttons being pushed.
Being pushed. So to come back to your point about acquisition, then I think when one has no longer a sense of meaning and purpose from connection, then one tries to get it from self-stimulation in some way, which might be sexual, but which might also be by acquiring goods, or by getting on what we call the hedonic treadmill, finding things that give you pleasure for an instant. Unfortunately, it's called a treadmill because once you're on it, it's very hard to get off it. And the harder you try for pleasure, the less it becomes to you, and you have to keep escalating the stakes in order to get there. So that is a very typical phenomenon, I believe, in modern culture. And it's contrasted, as you know, conventionally with eudaimonic happiness, which is the pursuit of happiness through a sense of fulfillment as a human being by behaving in a decent way and enriching your life by experience, which would be more like what the right hemisphere sees. And interestingly, although hedonic happiness doesn't seem to have any lateralization at all, I think it's probably very instinctual, eudaimonic happiness seems to be more right hemisphere related.